Welcome to Off Watch, a podcast by the Ocean Race. A lot of you are asking to hear from Xabi Fernández, the Spanish sailing legend. So I sat down with him and asked him about that partnership with Iker Martinez that was forged in those early years in the Olympics. Then that first step into the ocean race back on the VO70, into the development of the VO65, and the last edition. What did MAPFRE do right? What did they do wrong? And what was going on board the Spanish boat in that final crucial leg into The Hague that wrapped up the final scores. Now, if you enjoy this interview, you can leave us a review. And of course, we are always taking suggestions as to who we should be talking to next. Enjoy. Xabi Fernández has been in every edition of the Ocean Race since joining Movistar back in 2005, representing Spanish hopes for their first race win. He is a relentless campaigner, with 3 appearances at the Olympic Games, walking away once with a silver medal and once with a gold. Now, if you throw in 3 World Championship wins in the 49er, you begin to see why his resume is hard to beat. But Xabi, with all of that said, there's also a little bit of an enigma about the way you sail, because fans of the race have always described you as quite modest, and as a skipper, you're never seen on the helm. We always find you head down, working on the pumps, working on the winches. You seem quite happy to let other people in your team enjoy the limelight. I wonder, is that a fair description of you? Do you prefer the sailing? And do you just dislike doing interviews like this?
Well, of course, we prefer the sailing, all of us, I think, or everyone says with me. But I think with the last point you mentioned, which is very clear, is when you have someone in the team or in the boat which can make a better job than you just need to let them do it, And I think we share everyone. In an ocean race, it's time for everything, and we all share most of the things. But of course, we had, for example, in the last MAPFRE, we had 3 specialists which drove much more than the others.
I mean, you're right about your resume probably doesn't put you as a helm, but it's also your ability to stay quite grounded. I mean, let's go back to 2004. So this is your 28. You go to the Athens Olympic Games, and you put in, a hell of a performance. 8 races in the top 5 out of 16. It's a really strong performance. It looks pretty good on any scorecard at all. That must have been a good launch pad to, go anywhere from there.
Athens for Iker and me in the 49er was for sure the best, the best years we had since 2001, 2, 3, where we had big fights actually with, especially with British 49er sailors, but with few boats, but really they were our years. I don't gonna dare to compare to Peter and Blair, but we had this kind of years where we won so many races one after the other, and we went to Athens, probably being favorites, and we have to go there and win, and as you say, we did a almost perfect Olympics, right? So these years where really things were aligned, and we had a good team around us as well with our coach, with the federation, and we were very well organized, and things happened very, very nicely. From there, obviously, we kept going with the 49er, which we still did, very good years, but always harder, and especially China Olympics in Qingdao, they were very hard for us in a place with no wind, and we had to basically learn sailing with no wind, which was far from our specialty. And for sure, after Athens, we started going to the ocean with Movistar, with Bauer, with Chris Nicholson, with so many people we sail around the world a couple of times later.
Well, you mentioned Chris Nicholson. The thing that I found really amusing when I was looking through some of the old results is from the Athens Games. You've got, you mentioned the British, Chris Draper, he's there at that Games. And obviously with Luna Rossa, there's, a crossover there later on in your sailing career. Chris Nicholson as well, on board Movistar. We need to touch on that boat not least because it was a 70. It was a bit of a step up. And I think there's an important point about why we end up with the VO65s, because, the 70s, almost in that first edition, they showed that they were vulnerable. And of course, Movistar, with Bauer Becking as the skipper, that tragedy in the transatlantic leg. What was your experience? You've just come into the ocean race, you've just seen it, and now you get a very real taste of what it can do. Your boat sinks.
Well, first, lucky enough, I guess. I wasn't that leg because, I kind of finished that race in Brazil, and then we went back, Iker and me, to the 49 campaign, so we could do the Worlds that year. But we had a lot of a taste before that anyway, because both in Australia, then we sailed on our own from Australia to Spain, just training. And that was already a big learning and big adventure. We had so many problems. The boat wasn't really ready, but, this time of the year that we go now, or we never go, So few discussions already in that point of the campaign. And then I think we did a very good boat with Movistar. It was, in my opinion, clearly the fastest of the far boats. Obviously nothing to do with against the one case from ABN. But, the boat was going well, and at the start, having problems. We had a big failure in the keel attachment to the boat close to the Cape Horn, where we had a moment there. We had to stop in Ushuaia and then go to Brazil, and then, of course, 2 legs later across the Atlantic. Finally, this spin failed, and they had to abandon the boat and obviously sank. So, big campaign. The 70s, as you mentioned, they were amazing. I think the guys but Iker and me, in that program, everyone did the Volvo before, at least one Volvo before with the 60s. And I don't think they were expecting that, that performance, that power in the Volvo 70s. They were still, trying to push the boats as much as they used to push the 60s, right? So obviously everything was falling apart. But say that this always happens. This is it's nothing to compare because the experience of the whole fleet and designers and builders, everything is much bigger now. But this is a little bit one of question marks we could have in the future going to the 60s, right? Because again, it's open design and you have to push the limits to be the fastest. No? But after that Volvo 70 edition, the next two, again with the Volvo 70s, they were much more reliable. Still, not as much as a 65, obviously, but the performance of those boats, they were amazing. And if you talk to people, they did the Volvo in the 70s, you won't find anyone, not talking great things about the Volvo 70s.
I remember somebody describing when they'd finished the race on their 70 and they'd found out that their boat was going to be sold. And the sailor said, actually, I don't think this boat should be sold to a private owner. I think this boat should be cut up with a chainsaw because we can barely handle the power. And then if it just goes for a weekend sail. But you say they were a little bit more reliable. I mean, the last edition that you did on the 70s with Iker Martinez, and I want to bring in Iker here because there's a friendship that has to get, unraveled. You guys have been sailing so much. But before I do, that last edition with Telefonica, when you guys finished 4th, this was the one where we had dismastings, Abu Dhabi, Puma, Team Sanya, I think, had problems with their hull. There was a point where I think it was only 2 of the boats were sailing on one of the legs. My question is, did you see it as inevitable that the race would change in a fundamental way from open design to one design where the structure and the risk could be controlled a bit?
Well, I don't think, I'm not sure, we should probably ask Canute again, but I don't think the real reason for changing to the 65s were reliability, but, money and budgets going, high numbers in a really difficult moment, on the, I guess, economical scale in the planet, like people really struggling to get the budget up and, trying to find something, yes, more reliable. But when you go to one design, in my opinion, and happened with the 65s for the good and for the bad, is that you go something simpler, something much, much more reliable, and for sure cheaper. Yeah, probably, but for sure you gain time. You gain so much time because, design is made and you need to build the boat, which is fairly controlled, the amount of time you need for that. And then, off you go and sail. Of course, a lot of development, small things you can do and learning. If I always say, if we would sail the first Volvo 65 race 2 races ago, as we sail the last one, you would win every single leg for sure. And or the guys selling the 49er now comparing to the guys selling the 49er early 2000s, they would win every single race for sure because you develop how you sail and how you prepare the boat. But the key thing is the time. That if you have to design and redesign and refine and build the boat and then have some breakages and then the rule is open where you can change and do new sails, etc., then you need a lot of time, which basically is money. So, it's to me one of the worst things to an open design campaign or race is that you need much more time.
I mean, from a spectator point of view, from a fan point of view, having the one design and having you guys finish, and we will get to Newport later, but having you guys finish within 2, 3, 4 boat lengths of each other, it certainly makes it quite exciting. I want to bring in Iker Martinez at this point. So you guys campaigning together in the 49er, as you say, before that, Athens, this was a partnership that was really strong, delivering with the field that you had, almost unbeatable, certainly favourites. You go and do the Ocean Race, what was then the Volvo Ocean Race. Did you encourage him to come and give it a go? Because you had one more than him. Then you do the second one with Bauerbecking, and Iker's on board. How did he step on board?
Well, no, we went both together to Movistar after Athens.
Oh, okay.
And we did all the training together, and then finally he did step in for the racing. He was involved still in the import races and stuff, and then, as I said before, we went back to the 49er, and then after China, and well, before that actually, with all the design with the Telefonica Blue and Black program, we were involved from day one, and so was him, and and then he stepped in for that Telefonica Blue, and then he is skipper for Telefonica, and then we did together for MAPFRE, and then the last one he was involved because he's still campaigning for the Olympic sailing. This is one thing probably the most different between us in the last year is I had enough from the Olympics in London, after London, and in his world he's still fighting hard for Lacrosse or for whatever is coming from the Olympics.
So there's so much that you've just said in 2 minutes. Olympic campaigns, there's world championships thrown in as well. You've got your dinghy sailing with Iker Martinez, and I'm sure you didn't do that at 50%. I'm sure you did that full on. Did you ever get tired? There's so much sailing in such a short period of time.
Well, don't forget the Barcelona World Race, which is...
Of course.
But it's the 95 days at sea, double-handed and in Animoca, actually, right? So, and that was for sure the most intense campaign we've done till now. Of course, you get tired. We say I did as well a few, interviews, and in I don't know, in 4 or 5 years we did the 2 Olympics, 3 races around the world, and 1 America's Cup, and 2 kids and wife and house, and it's a lot going on for a very short period of time. And again, I think we've had a lot of fun, which is the for sure the most important thing. But yeah, we manage. I think we manage quite okay to do all these things not too bad. And of course, we see those moments where you realize you're doing too much and you start not losing control, but you need to start being careful.
Let's get to recent history. So the last two editions of the race.
Maybe this is better? Or not?
Yeah, perfect. There we go. I mean, you were beautiful before, but you're gorgeous now. Let's get to recent history. Let's get to the two campaigns with MAPFRE. The first one that you do, this is the 2014-15 edition of the race, with Iker Martinez being on the helm. You mentioned before that after London 2012, you decided, okay, I'm going to step back from Olympic sailing. I've done that. I'm done. Was 2014-15 the campaign for Iker where he decided, I'm going to step away from the race?
Not really. I don't think so. I don't think so much. For sure, probably needed a break in terms of, wow, as far as I'm doing the Olympics, as far as I'm doing the campaign on some other sailing, I can't be one edition not being in the race. Nothing's going to happen to me. But I'm sure this is not the last we have seen.
Well, because of course, as you said, he was involved in the last MAPFRE race. So this is 2017-18. With the start of that race, I just want to, there is so much to pick apart. One of the things, as I say at the beginning, that you are so well known for and so respected for is your leadership style. You're skipper of the MAPFRE boat 2017-18. You were skipper occasionally in 14-15 when Iker was campaigning. Did you want to be skipper? Or was it a case of, well, someone's got to do it?
Well, it's a bit of everything. For sure, when Pedro got the money, Iker again was the first option for the team, basically, because it was pretty much the same structure going ahead. And then, for him wasn't the right time to do it. And then, it's kind of not really escape, we can't really play out. And that's from one side, and for the other side as well, so many races already being involved and closer to, especially when Iker was skippering, being very close to this part of the team. And, I did it, happily. And I think in my way as well in terms of trying to have good people around me and try to let them do. And I think we had a fantastic team last time.
Let's talk about some of those good people then. Juan Villa wins the race back on Ilbrook 2001-02. We then don't see him for 15 years on a boat, and then back he is with you guys. What led him to being involved?
Well, you haven't seen him. He's been involved non-stop. He's any of us for sure the last 20 years. He's been involved in all the Alinghi campaigns, if I'm not wrong, from there, being navigator on board, winning the cup a couple of times, then going to Oracle for 2 campaigns. And Juan has been always, I don't think he's going to listen to this anyway, but he's older than me. So one more generation, let's say, of Spanish sailors, which they sail a lot. And of course, I knew him. I knew a lot of him. He sailed a lot with Pedro Campos and all his structure as well. So it's been always very well known. And for us, he's been always kind of a person where, Juan has been always the best, right? And not only from our group in Spain, but, all this Alinghi stuff he's done and Oracle. So he's been always top of our list, but he's been always so busy that he wasn't able to do anything. But the truth is that I remember I met with him in Bermuda, one of the trips I did with VAR, Reconin, and obviously they were there with Oracle and start talking, and he showed great interest to be on board again of the Volvo and ended up being with us. And it's been super easy to work with. And, so much experience on that.
The lineup of your team, I mean, it was very impressive, and I'm sure you take great pride in some of the people that you managed to put around you. There was a wonderful quote that I remember you saying about when the start gun goes and you finally get to leave the dock, you're so happy just to go, okay, all of the drama on the shore, you leave, now it's just we race. But that very first leg, that very first harbour course with all the spectator boats in Alicante was so chaotic. And I remember the race starting with a 3-boat jibing, incident, shall we say. Did you get a sense at that point that, well, if this is how close we're going to be, if this is how people are going to be fighting for every meter, did you get a sense that it would be those 3 boats again at the finish, at the end, fighting that close? Did it feel like it was going to be a special year?
Well, we knew it would be very, very close because even the edition before, we ended up having very close legs. As I said before, everything you learn so much from the boats, right? You give me a minute. In the edition before, 13-14 or 14-15, we were in the opposite kind of preparation. We were late. The money came, and that's, again, as I said before, the good thing of being a one design in terms of, at the end of the day, you can buy the boat and go racing. You don't need much time. You won't be prepared, but you can be there. And it took us a couple of legs to be on tune. And normally, which is what happens, normally losing these 1 or 2 legs is too much. And you lose options to win the race. What happened this time, which is the thing they changed, and I think it was a good thing to do, and I think we all liked, even probably wasn't the best for the teams. We were well prepared, like Dongfeng and us, was the double point legs where they gave everything to Brunel. Brunel was in a terrible position in Auckland, which is halfway of the race and more than halfway of the points, if I'm not wrong, or about there. And then, obviously he did very well in 2 double point races, and he was with all the chances to win. If not, he wouldn't be, because really took a little bit too much or too long for them to be on sync with us or Dongfeng or up there, right? Anyway, we knew it would be super tight. Obviously, not as tight as it was. And the truth is that the teams were well prepared, and we had this damage in the Southern Ocean, but part of that, people didn't have to make damage. It was very hard to gain points around the world.
Let's take a look at some of that intensity then, because my mind goes to leg 3. So this is a double points leg, Southern Ocean, and there was a 7 or 8 hour stretch where you're racing with Dongfeng, you're very close, and you did 16 jibes in about a 7 or 8 hour stretch. Back in race control, we were chewing the numbers on this. That's a jibe on an average of 30, 35 minutes. And there was some that you were doing that were only 11, 15 minutes apart. It takes everybody. It takes every crew member on the boat to jibe. You're doing jibes every 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe. There's 10 minutes of preparation before the jibe with the stack. There's 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes afterwards. And that's a good jibe. How difficult was it to get your sailors, to get your team to go along with that plan? How hard was it to get them out of their bunks?
Well, not that hard, I have to say. Not that hard. Everyone, full commitment. No one was on the bunks, of course. full with the gear and on the floor. But, it's tough, and you have some faces here and there. But everyone was super committed. No problem at all. And again, first you're fighting for the win. It's not like you're jiving with no point. And second, when the report came and we saw the gains, it's such a bust. You keep going, and but I remember very, very well that leg. A lot of jives in a day, and I'm very happy.
I'm sure as the skipper, you get to know your sailors and you get to see when they're down, and you can be there to pick them up. You'll have people on board your boat who will be there to look after the sails, look after the engine, the winches. Was there anybody on board your boat that was there to look after you? Who did you go and talk to when you were down?
Well, seriously, I think I've done all kind of Volvos. Some being very bad from the beginning, and then you have a long way ahead of you. Some which we were fighting for some legs, but knowing really that we couldn't beat Exxons or whatever, which is quite tough. But you have your small goals. Let's see if this leg, which could be good for us or not, and it's more up and down. This time, I think we've been fighting and knowing that we could win the race the whole way, where the people has been, very high spirits, myself for sure, and of course you have good moments, bad moments. I think Patan, Pablo Ararte, or Nieti, they are, friends. I think I've done 3 or 4 races with each of them, and probably is the people I talk the most. But I think we have a very strong group, and one for the other, I think we were able to keep the spirits high all the time, most of the time.
Well, then let's jump ahead to the next Southern Ocean leg. And, it's another double points leg. Earlier on in the leg, you have a problem with your mast track, which obviously goes on to cause a bit of a big problem. I want to get to that repair. It was amazing to see how many decisions you've obviously made to put the right pieces in place so that you could deal with it. But the lasting image, I think, for so many people was that shot from the back of the boat. And I believe you're down on the starboard primary winch. And then the main goes, it's torn in half, that's it. At that split second, when you look up and you see the main is now in 2 pieces, what was the first thought that popped into your mind?
Well, the frustration was, we lost this leg. It's a major breakage. We have to stop now. All the Southern Ocean, all these days, this discussion on board, we should stop, we shouldn't, it's better to stop. Everything depends weather. So much pressure on Juan, because in the 2 editions before, when we stopped in there with Telefonica, we stopped for 12 hours with the same rule. But then we had the opposite. We had the weather system where they were stopping Puma, and we were coming from behind, gaining 300 miles a day. And actually, we overtook them before the finish line in Itajaí, and then again in an inshore fight, they beat us. But all the pressure was there. If the weather forecast was like this, we could even stop thinking. We would even think on stopping there, even if the main wouldn't break completely, because we could think that we could recover these 12 hours. But the weather window was terrible, and we knew, and Juan was telling us, if we stop, it's no way, because they will go ahead of the front and we will never cross. And that was the worst thing. So we called them again, they were still there. We did all the repair, 12 hours, go back to the point where we suspended race it, and then and from there, we sailed maybe a day or half a day with the main down still, was trying all the group. And then we start sailing, was okay, but we never passed that bridge. And then we struggled to get to Italia. That was a shame.
But as a team, you can be very proud of the repair that you made. It was, I've never done the race, and I'm not going to do the race, but it was amazing to see how prepared a good team is in the race for all these little things that go wrong. So, you had a boat on standby in Ushuaia, and obviously they have some things on board. What could they have repaired? Was it just, okay, if we have a sail breakage? What were you ready for?
Well, as you see, we fixed the sail and we glued we glue the track to the mast and we fix the boom. So we had fair amount of boat building materials and glue and 50-200 and spa bond and all these things where you can repair pretty much everything, And yes, I'm very proud, not myself, the whole team. This is a thing coming from 2011 where we had the team there prepared with a piece of the bow, which we glue in Telefonica inside in 10 hours as well, right? So from that lesson, we always had clear that if we go again, even more recent, we have a big contingency plans, not only Cape Horn, a little bit everywhere where, people stand by till Gibraltar, till you leave, and then you always have some plan B to stop somewhere if something happens. And, that's why, again, I think this is just to be prepared, and that's exactly as I said before, very briefly, is what happened in the race before, and then we were penalized.
I'm sure it wasn't what you wanted to happen, of course, and I'm sure it was pretty tough to deal with. Was it nice to be able, as a silver lining, to have a crew meal with everybody all together at one time?
Of course, yeah, that was good because, once you have taken the bad part, you at least enjoy the good one, and we had a fantastic dinner, lasagna in that boat, and actually we still keep contact with that crew, and that was very, very nice. The problem is that we did a mistake because in these 12 hours we could take some extra food for us as well, and then we basically had a delivery to do to Itajaí, and we basically ran out of food a couple of days before. we made ourselves a little bit, not very clever in that moment. But the last thing we were thinking in Ushuaia was to take more food.
Well, let's move on to the next leg then, which is the one that a lot of people will remember. This is the race from Itajaí to Newport. Now, as you're as you're coming into this, you're 24 hours before the finish, you're in 5th place. Looking at the weather forecast, were you aware that something crazy was going to happen?
From there to thinking on winning the leg, I would be lying if I thought we would be able to win the leg. But we had a bad leg because we broke the part of the mast or the sail, and then now we again struggling here in a tough leg. And then when we saw the scenario, we can still catch up here, I would sign anything, sign a 4th or a 3rd or something like this. And of course, being ahead of Tom Fon. But then when we start sailing close to the harbor or inside the harbor, again, no wind at all. And we were just a little bit faster, I think. And we passed one by one everyone until we passed Brunel in the finish line, which was, imagine how hard it would be for the boats they were being passed. Like for us was this thing, the longer it takes, the better for us. So we were kind of enjoying this situation. A lot of maneuvers again, very light wind sailing, and the boat moving forward quite well. So I remember passing Don Fen, which was a massive relief that was still outside, and then I don't remember the boats.
It's amazing when you take a look back at the tracker, which you can still do on the Ocean Race website, and it's almost like people are trying to spell their names in, the trails with you guys just sort of going around and everything. When you did cross that line, and you had obviously turned what could have been a bad result into a very good one. Brunel had also done well. Did you get a sense then that we're seeing Brunel and Bowie, they're at the front more and more?
For sure. We saw that in the Southern Ocean leg as well, not only because they won that leg, but I guess they were taking more risk as well and sailing, stronger because they had to. But they sail in a very good level. And for sure, we knew the potential of the sailors they had on board, and Bowie himself. Of course, they had KP as well, which is always safe to have. And we knew for sure that Tom Fen was the biggest guy to fight. But
were you nervous as we got into those final 2 legs because you didn't have one enemy. Now you had two boats to look after.
Well, of course, but when you have two enemies, the other one has two enemies as well, and it's not a one-to-one fight anymore. And it's when you have to go back to yourself and say, well, we have to win this leg to Gothenburg, and and it was super tricky. That race, that leg, I have a very good memories as well, because I think we sailed very well. A few issues at the beginning, we were behind by Fastnet, but then we start passing the people, and by the time we were in Scotland, we were leading, and then I don't know, one of the moments as well from the race is when Brunel passed us just hours before the finish lines, pure boat speed, and that was tough because we tried absolutely everything. They were good few miles behind us and should be job done, and it's not that we relaxed or we did a mistake. It was straight line, and they were just coming faster. And at the end of the day, that was very, very important, those points as well.
It was certainly one of the defining moments of the race. But let's go to the defining moment, the bit. So we get to the final leg. There's three boats, Dongfeng Race Team, yourselves, MAPFRE, Team Brunel, who are effectively tied, all square on points, with Dongfeng Race Team with this bonus point waiting for lowest elapsed time. Before you left the dock, what were some of the discussions that you were having about how you would sail that leg?
Again, we had a clear plan in terms of, I think positions on board, inboard positions, everyone training all the time, drivers driving, everything, taking every little shift needed to take, and not being no half an hour rules or 1 hour rules or these things you sometimes do when you're in the oceans, and try to do our best leg. And then we went to the critical moment, which was top of Denmark, and we had to decide in or out. The truth is, our plan from the shore, like it was on France, they told us, Marcel and everything, was to go inside like they did. And we started going down, but what we didn't have in the plan before the start was the rough seas. It was super windy again, 30 plus knots, and super choppy. And, and the place where you could go inside the wind farm and the land was like 5 meters deep moments, and the last thing we could do is to put any kind of risk of putting the boat on the ground in this stage of the race, and we were leading, and we saw clearly Brunel, which was coming second in that moment. I think, well, I don't know, we were three of us very, very close together.
Yeah. They
decided to go outside, and we were still keeping a couple of options. And then when we saw how rough and how risky we thought it was, we decided to go outside. And then we had these final 10 hours or whatever they were, so stressful, where I think it was paying for us for a long time. Anyway, the wind shifted to the wrong direction, and we had to be jibing, and they were straight line instead of being opposite.
One of the things I think is quite cruel about sailing is that when you're in the lead, it takes a long time in our sport to get to the finish line. When you are losing, you might still have hours, days to continue to go. When you did see Dongfeng Race Team in front of you, how long did that final 15 minutes feel like?
Well, it was a sad moment, obviously, and really didn't really want to get there and see everyone, but you have to, and we still had the fight with Axel Nobel, I think, and Brunel, make sure we would not be. I'm actually not sure if Axel Nobel beat us in that leg or not. I don't remember.
Second.
They did second. Okay. We were ahead and they passed us anyway. So yeah, well, tough moments, but we've lost races so many more times than winning that you kind of get used to it, even if it's not good. But I think, and all of us, it wasn't such a drama. I think everyone on board had a good feeling of the race, and say this so many times that we had no problems on the team, and we had the same people on shore and on the boat from the very beginning in Alicante to the end of the program. So I think it was a success in all the aspects, and of course we lost it, which is a massive disappointment. Then you have, some people blinds more the problem in the Southern Ocean. I'm pretty sure when sometimes you are unlucky, sometimes we were lucky for sure, like Newport, don't forget. So it's fine. It's a good result, and we had a massive fight with Don Fenn and Charles and the whole team, and was good fun, but of course tough to lose like this.
It's almost a little cruel that the results from the last edition just say 1, 2, 3, rather than, there was nothing between the performance of these three boats. By the time we got there, it was so close. I'm sure that you would like to get out and do the race again. I'm sure that you want to be the person to get the first race win for Spain. Is there anything that you could change about how you raced the last edition? As you say, a little luck here and there, but you looked so solid and it was so close.
Yeah, again, no, I think if you have to be a little bit tough on yourself. I think the transatlantic was bad. I think we had a plan, which we did the plan we had, but probably we didn't adapt ourselves to the conditions. But anyway, now it's so easy. Now we would win every single day. So. It's all right. It's not regrets really to what we did as a team for sure, and results either. And how to manage the Southern Ocean, always think, sometimes you think, if we probably took it a bit, easier or repair, or you never know.
Yeah. Interesting that you even entertain the idea that maybe you took the Southern Ocean easy, or 30 minutes between jibes. That's a hard-working team. Would you jump at the chance to take your team back to the start line for the next edition?
Well, I wish we could be there. Of course, I wish we could be there, but of course, tough moments. These moments right now we live in, and it's hard to know the future. To be honest, it's very hard to know the future, and I hope we really not in a bad way, absolutely not in a bad way, but we do feel as a team that we have like unfinished business with this race, and we very much would like to win it as a team with the same instruction with Pedro and hopefully with MAPFRE, but we know where we are, and we've been lucky, very lucky to be involved in the last 5 editions. So let's see what happens.
Because at the moment, the next thing that we are scheduled to see you in is the America's Cup with Team Ineos. And you guys at the moment, obviously you're in Spain. The Ineos Team GB, it's UK, is back in Britain, but you're still able to do some training. How is that working?
Well, you've got a lot of information, I see, but well, it's tough. I think it's very tough for an America's Cup campaign to be as we are, because we speak about all the effort we put in the Volvo Ocean Race, and which is amazing. Mostly when you are sailing. In the America's Cup, the effort before sailing, before even getting sailing, is just unbelievable. And this situation where we ended up with, we were with a very nice plan to be in Sardinia, in Italy, try to see where we were with the other teams in the racing, was scheduled to do. A few weeks passed, and now nothing is happening, right? So nothing is happening in that front, but of course the team is doing very well in terms of being progressing with Boat 2, with simulator, which I think is what you're referring at, and a lot of work going on there, and it's amazing, and it's the future of sailing, I guess. We not anymore this test and error and everything in the water and two boats to test, because the boats are so complicated, so complicated that it's pretty much impossible to be able to have two boats fully prepared to do a two-boat testing and have decisions to make in a third boat to be built. Everything goes so slow. So we have to rely on the tools, as we always have done, and the CAP always have done. But these days the simulator is a real tool where sailors and designers get this common point where the conversations are much more even, let's say, and you can sometimes not proof. I wouldn't say proof, but you can at least question a few points where designers are very, very tough to talk to.
You've obviously got a lot of sailing left to go, and you've done so much already. You're going to continue to inspire people. One of the people that I spoke to that was a big fan of yours was Francesca Klapčić from Turn the Tide on Plastic in the last edition. And she's looking to put a team together, an Italian team if she can, for the next edition. She was talking about you as somebody that from her 49er FX sailing, she always looked up to you and Ika and how you would do it, and then as a skipper as well. As a final question for somebody who wants to be a skipper in the ocean race, what's the one thing? Is there one thing above all else that if you want to be a good skipper, good leader, this is it?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm the best person to give advice to anyone, but of course I'm sure, and I'm aware that she is working hard to find the money and to find to put the team together, and she just needs to put the best team possible or table together, which she can, and then trust and let, in my opinion, is let the people do what they know doing better than you. It's impossible. One person can be better than everyone else in everything. So have big names which we haven't even mentioned in this conversation, like Rob or Pan Patan, all these people we had with Blair, Willie, everything, because everyone was giving their piece, and you have to let them do and listen and together try to build a team, which is, we always say when sometimes we do some talks or whatever, MAPFRE or some companies, and these days is almost on fashion to say teamwork and all this, they to say these words, but in sailing, ocean sailing, this is a team effort. It's nothing you can do on your own, and you have to trust the people you have around you, and if you don't trust them, you better change them.
Xabi, I think that the description that many fans have of you as a very modest skipper, I think that it's accurate. Thank you very much for talking to me today.
Thank you very much.